August 19th, 1944. Near Falaise, France. The world has dissolved into a slurry of mud and noise. For Hanna Vogel, a 21-year-old Oberhelferin in the Luftwaffe Signals Corps, the scent of summer rain is gone, replaced by the metallic tang of blood and the acrid bite of cordite. The air, thick enough to chew, shivers with the unending percussion of distant artillery. Each rumble feels like a giant's fist pounding the earth, a relentless reminder that the front line is no longer a line at all, but a chaotic, collapsing pocket. Her gray-blue uniform, once a source of pride, is now stained with grime and the rust-colored mud of Normandy. The neat silver piping on her collar is frayed, her cap lost somewhere in the panicked retreat. She clutches the strap of her empty satchel, its sensitive codebooks and frequency lists burned 2 days ago in a frantic pyre beside a crippled SDKF 251 half-track. All that remains is the muscle memory of her work, the quick, precise dance of her fingers over a teleprinter, the calm cadence of her voice translating encrypted signals into coordinates, flight paths, and warnings. Her unit, once an orderly nerve center tracking Allied bomber streams, has ceased to exist. It's shattered like glass under the hammer of the Allied advance. Now she is just another piece of debris swept along in the gray-green tide of the Wehrmacht's westward flight. Around her, faces are hollowed out by exhaustion and fear. Boys who swaggered through Paris a year ago now stare with thousand-yard eyes, their rifles held loosely, their discipline evaporating in the face of survival. An officer shouts orders, but his voice is thin, swallowed by the whine of a P-47 Thunderbolt making a low pass overhead. Everyone flinches, diving for the relative safety of a ditch already crowded with the wounded and the dying. The mud is cool and slick, a final, undignified embrace. You can taste the grit in your teeth, feel the cold water seep through the thin wool of your trousers. This is not the glorious defense of the Reich she had read about in the papers. This is the end of a world. They move at night, a phantom column of ghosts, stumbling through shattered French villages. The names on the signs mean nothing. Every shelled-out church, every burned-out Renault is identical. By day, they hide. In barns that stink of sour hay and animal fear, in damp woods where the canopy offers a fragile shield from the ever-present Jabo patrols, the fighter bombers that hunt them relentlessly. Hanna learns the art of becoming invisible, of pressing herself into the earth, of quieting her breath until her own heartbeat sounds like a drum. She is no longer a signals operator. She is prey. The distinction between soldier and refugee has blurred. She is with a small group now, a dozen soldiers led by a weary Feldwebel with a bandaged head. They are trying to reach the Seine, the last great barrier before, they hope, some semblance of order can be restored. But hope is a currency in short supply. The end comes not with a bang, but with a quiet, terrifying finality. They are crossing an open field at dawn, shrouded in a low-hanging mist, when the silhouettes appear. Tall, broad-shouldered men, not in Feldgrau, but in the dark olive drab of the Americans. Their helmets are different. Their rifles, the M1 Garens, are slung with a casual readiness. A voice, clear and confident, cuts through the fog in accented German. Hände hoch, der Krieg ist für dich vorbei. Hands up, the war is over for you. The Feldwebel hesitates for a split second, his hand twitching towards his sidearm. A single, sharp crack echoes across the field, and he crumples to the ground without a sound. The rest of them raise their hands, a slow, tired forest of surrender. The Americans are efficient, impersonal. They move in, disarming the men, their faces grim but not cruel. Hanna stands frozen, her hands held high, the morning chill seeping into her bones. A young GI, his face covered in freckles, looks at her, his eyes widening in surprise. He calls over a sergeant, a harder-looking man with a cigar stub clamped in his teeth. The sergeant approaches, his gaze sweeping over her, taking in the uniform, the rank insignia on her sleeve that marks her as a specialist. He ignores the other women in the group, the local French collaborators or the nurses who were also swept up in the retreat. His eyes fix on her. He grunts something to the younger soldier, then looks directly at Hanna. His German is rough, functional. You, signals, Luftwaffe? She says nothing, her throat tight with a fear colder than the morning air. He gestures to the lightning bolt patch on her sleeve, the distinctive mark of the Nachrichtenhelferinnen. You answer me, yes or no. Hannah gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. The sergeant's expression changes. It is not anger, not pity, it is something else entirely. It is the look of a prospector who has just found a vein of gold. He turns and yells to an officer standing by a jeep. Hey, Lieutenant, we got one here. A real one, not just another cook. This one's a goddamn spark pusher. In that moment, Hannah Vogel's war changes. She is no longer a refugee, no longer just another prisoner. She is intelligence. She is a locked box. And she can already feel the cold, probing touch of the men who will try to find the key. The journey is a blur of canvas and vibration. Shoved into the back of a GMC truck, Hannah is separated from the male prisoners, a distinction that brings no comfort. She sits on a hard wooden bench, jolting over cratered roads, the smells of diesel fumes and unwashed bodies thick in the air. Her bards are impassive, chewing gum, their rifles held across their laps. They don't speak to her. They speak about her, in a language she barely understands, the words Luftwaffe and Intel floating in the stream of their casual conversation. Each mile east is a mile deeper into a new reality, a world where she has no name, only a potential value. The French countryside, once a landscape of rustic beauty seen from the windows of a staff car, is now a hostile territory viewed through a grimy canvas flap. Villagers watch the convoy pass, their faces a mixture of celebration and contempt. A woman spits at the truck as it rumbles through a small town, her eyes burning with a hatred that feels intensely personal. Hannah flinches, turning away, feeling the shame wash over her like a physical blow. She served the Reich, but here, in the eyes of the occupied, she is the Reich. They arrive at a destination that is not a camp. There are no barbed wire fences, no watchtowers. It is a stately French chateau, its gray stone walls streaked with damp, its elegant windows staring out like vacant eyes. Weeds choke the formal gardens. It feels haunted, a place of faded grandeur, now repurposed for the grim necessities of war. This is a POW interrogation center, a place spoken of in whispers back at her unit, a place where the enemy peels back your mind layer by layer. She is led through a heavy oak door into a grand foyer where a portrait of a bewigged nobleman still hangs crookedly on the wall, his painted eyes judging her. The process of stripping her of her identity begins immediately. An American officer, seated at a makeshift desk, takes down her details without looking at her. Name, Hannah Vogel. Rank, Oberhelferin. Unit, Luftnachrichtenregiment 302. He gives her a number. 7G4829. You are no longer Hannah. You are a sequence of digits, a file to be opened. She is taken to a small, damp room in what was once the servants' quarters. A formal military police officer, a woman with a stern face and powerful arms, orders her to undress. Every item is inspected. Her uniform, her boots, the small faded photograph of her family she kept tucked in her paybook, it is all taken away. The photograph is examined for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable in the MP's eyes, before it disappears into a manila envelope. The intimacy of the search is a violation, a calculated act of dehumanization. She is given a rough set of coveralls, coarse and smelling of disinfectant, and a pair of thin slippers. Dressed in this anonymous garb, she looks in a cracked mirror and sees a stranger, a pale, frightened girl with haunted eyes. Her hair, once kept in a neat regulation bun, is now a tangled mess. She has become a generic enemy, stripped of rank, service, and individuality. The final defense of her uniform is gone. Her cell is in the wine cellar. The air is cold and smells of earth, damp stone, and ancient spilled wine. A single bare bulb hangs from the ceiling, casting long, distorted shadows. There is a wooden cot with a thin, lumpy mattress and a single gray blanket. A bucket serves as a toilet. The only sound is the drip of water somewhere in the darkness and the distant, muffled footsteps of guards on the stone floor above. Time ceases to have meaning. There is no day or night in the cellar, only the unending dim glow of the light bulb. Hours stretch into an eternity of waiting. This, she realizes, is part of the interrogation. The isolation, the uncertainty, the cold that seeps into your bones, and the silence that forces you to confront your own thoughts, your own fears. Her training kicks in, the lectures on resisting enemy questioning. State only your name, rank, and serial number. Do not engage. Do not volunteer information. But that training was for men, for soldiers on the battlefield. It didn't account for this slow, creeping psychological dread, the feeling of being buried alive. She paces the small space, the slap of her slippers on the stone floor the only proof she still exists. She tries to recite poetry, to recall the faces of her friends, to hold on to the woman she was before the capture. But the silence is a solvent, and her memories are beginning to feel thin, fragile. After a period she can no longer measure, one day, perhaps two, the silence is broken by the heavy sound of a key turning in the iron lock. The door groans open, revealing a tall American officer. He is not what she expected. He is older, perhaps in his late 30s, with neat hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-limbed spectacles. He holds no weapon. In his hand is a file folder. He offers a small, disarming smile. "Fräulein Vogel," he says, his German precise, almost unaccented. "My name is Captain Miller. Please, come with me. We have some things to discuss." The interrogation room is not the dungeon she had imagined. It is a small study on the ground floor of the chateau, a room that still holds the ghosts of its former life. Faded silk wallpaper, patterned with birds and branches, peels near the ceiling. A grand, unlit fireplace dominates one wall. A heavy mahogany desk sits in the center of the room, and behind it, Captain Miller gestures for her to take the simple wooden chair opposite him. The chair feels deliberately uncomfortable, its straight back forcing an alert, tense posture. On the corner of the desk, 2 porcelain cups and a steaming pot of coffee have been placed. The aroma fills the room, a scent of civilian life, of normalcy, so potent it almost makes her dizzy. You haven't tasted real coffee in over a year. It's a simple, calculated kindness, the first step in a very deliberate dance. "Coffee, Fräulein Vogel?" Miller asks, his voice calm, almost professorial. He doesn't wait for an answer, pouring the dark liquid into both cups. He pushes one towards her. "No sugar, I'm afraid. War shortages, you understand." He sits down, opens the file on his desk, but doesn't look at it. Instead, he studies her, his gaze not threatening, but deeply analytical, like a doctor observing a patient. "You are from Dresden, I believe. A beautiful city. I visited before the war. The Zwinger Palace, the Frauenkirche. A tragedy what is happening to our world, is it not?" He speaks of her home, not of her unit. He is building a bridge, not a wall. Hannah remains silent, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Name, rank, serial number. The mantra repeats in her head. She will not drink the coffee. She will not answer his questions. She will be a soldier. Miller takes a sip of his own coffee, seemingly unbothered by her silence. "Your file is quite thin," he says, tapping the manila folder. Hannah Vogel, born 1923. Father, a professor of literature at the university. Mother, a homemaker. No brothers. A good student. Enjoyed music. Played the cello. Each word is a small, precise incision. He knows these things. The knowledge is a weapon, suggesting an omniscience that is deeply unsettling. "You volunteered for the Luftnachrichtenhelferinnen in 1942. A patriotic girl, wanting to do her part. I can understand that. Many of our own young women are doing the same." He frames her service not as an act of enemy aggression, but as a relatable, even noble choice. He is normalizing her, making her feel understood, lowering her defenses. Hannah's resolve begins to fray at the edges. It is one thing to resist a monster, but how do you resist a man who speaks of your life with such quiet familiarity? "You were also in the Bund Deutscher Mädel, of course," he continues, his tone conversational. "The League of German Girls. Most young women were. Did you enjoy it? The camping trips, the songs, the feeling of belonging to something greater than yourself? This question is different. It probes not just her past, but her ideology. It's the first real test. To admit she enjoyed it feels like a confession of her belief in the system she served. To deny it would be a lie. She stares at the intricate pattern on the wallpaper behind his head, focusing on a single peeling bird. Silence is her only shield. Miller leans forward slightly, his friendly demeanor hardening almost imperceptibly. You see, Hannah, we are not interested in the movements of a defeated army. We know where your divisions are. Most of them are in our prison camps. What we are interested in is understanding. We want to understand how a young woman who played the cello and read Goethe could end up helping direct night fighters to kill our bomber crews. The question hangs in the air, sharp and heavy. It is an accusation wrapped in a query. It reframes her role from a passive, technical non-combatant to an active participant in the killing. He is not asking what she did. He is asking who she is. He lets the silence stretch, the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall outside marking the passing seconds like a metronome of dread. He can see the conflict in her eyes, the rigid set of her jaw. He knows the first crack is forming. He changes his tone again, softening it. Your father, Professor Klaus Vogel, he specializes in 19th century romantic poetry, doesn't he? A man of culture. I wonder what he would think of all this. The mention of her father is a deliberate, painful blow. He is no longer just an interrogator. He is a presence inside her life, moving through her memories, touching the people she loves. Hannah's composure finally breaks. A single tear escapes and traces a clean path through the grime on her cheek. It is not the information she is afraid of giving up. It is the pieces of herself she feels him taking, one by one. She looks up, her eyes meeting his for the first time. What do you want from me? She whispers, her voice raspy. Captain Miller allows himself another small, patient smile. The door is now open. The sessions become a routine, a ritual of psychological erosion. Each day, sometimes twice a day, she is escorted from the cellar to the study. The coffee is always waiting. But the nature of Captain Miller's inquiry shifts. He has established his knowledge of her past. Now he begins to dissect her present, her beliefs, her very soul. He sets aside the file. He rarely takes notes. This is no longer about gathering data points. It is about dismantling a worldview. He leans back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Tell me, Hannah, he begins, his voice even. When you joined the BDM, marching with your comrades, singing the songs, did you truly believe in the 1,000-year Reich? The question is a trap. It forces her to confront the chasm between the grand promises of the party and the muddy, defeated reality of a field in Normandy. It's not a question about military strategy. It's a question about faith. You are forced to look back at the girl you were, full of fervent, state-sponsored optimism, from the perspective of the prisoner you have become. Did you believe the Führer when he said he was building a paradise for the German people? He continues, relentless. A paradise built on what, exactly? On whose ashes? He never raises his voice. His power lies in his calm, surgical precision. He begins to introduce new elements into the room. One day, he lays a series of photographs on the polished desk. They are not reconnaissance photos of airfields or radar installations. They are pictures from a newly liberated concentration camp. Gaunt, hollow-eyed figures in striped uniforms staring blankly at the camera. Piles of shoes. Barbed wire. We found these places, Hannah. Not propaganda. Our own soldiers took these pictures. Did you know about this? When you were plotting aircraft on your map, did you ever wonder what cargo the trains passing through your town were carrying? He makes her an accomplice. He links her clean, technical work in a quiet bunker, miles from any violence, to the regime's most monstrous crimes. Her denial is weak, reflexive. We didn't know the details. We were told they were work camps for enemies of the state." "Enemies of the state?" Miller echoes, his voice laced with a gentle, devastating irony. He pushes one photograph closer to her. It shows a group of women, their heads shaved, their bodies skeletal. "Do these look like enemies of the state to you, Hannah? Or do they just look like women? Women like your mother, women like you." He forces her to see herself in their place. He is systematically severing the moral justifications she has clung to, the comforting belief that she was simply a soldier serving her country. He is showing her that the country she served was a criminal enterprise, and by extension, her service was a contribution to the crime. He wants her to feel not just defeated, but guilty. The guilt will be the key that unlocks everything else. The questions become more intimate, more terrifyingly personal. "You had a fiancé, I believe, Lieutenant Richter, 116th Panzer Division, on the Eastern Front." Hannah stiffens, her blood running cold. How could he know that? "Have you heard from him recently?" he asks, his expression one of profound sympathy. The implication is clear. He has access to information far beyond what a simple interrogator should possess. He knows the status of German units, even on other fronts. He could, perhaps, find out if her fiancé is alive or dead. The unspoken offer hangs in the air. Cooperation for information. Your hope for his survival is now a potential tool of your enemy. "When you relayed the coordinates for a bombing run over England," he says, changing the subject with jarring speed, "did you ever picture the women in Coventry? The signals operators on the other side, the British WAAFs? Girls your age, doing your exact job, sitting in their own bunkers. Did you ever wonder if they had fiancés too?" He is relentless, weaving the personal and the political, her love and her duty, into an inextricable knot of anguish. He is not asking for codes or frequencies, not yet. He is making her question the very foundation of her identity. Was her patriotism a virtue or a delusion? Was her service an act of honor or an act of complicity? The room feels smaller, the air thinner. The peeling wallpaper seems to mock her with its faded, carefree birds. Captain Miller watches her, his face impassive, as her internal world crumbles. He is not just interrogating a German signals operator. He is conducting an autopsy on a belief system, and Hannah Vogel is the living subject on his table. He leans forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "So I ask you again, Hannah, the call signs for the night fighter wings around Frankfurt. It is a simple question. Tell me, and we can begin to separate the soldier from the monster." The distinction is gone. Soldier, monster, woman, daughter, lover. The labels have melted together under the intense, unblinking pressure of Captain Miller's questions. Days and nights have merged into a gray continuum of cellar gloom and study glare. Sleep offers no escape, filled with fractured dreams of falling bombers, accusing eyes in striped uniforms, and the face of her fiancé, Klaus, fading into the Russian snow. The coffee is no longer a comfort. It is part of the ritual of her slow disintegration. She drinks it now, a small act of capitulation in a war she has already lost. Her defiance has been ground down to a fine powder of exhaustion and despair. The mantra of name, rank, and serial number is a distant echo, a language from another lifetime. Captain Miller no longer bothers with the pretense of conversation. His questions are now rapid, precise, a staccato assault that gives her no time to think, no space to rebuild her defenses. He moves seamlessly between the deeply personal and the highly technical, creating a dizzying sense of psychological whiplash. The primary frequency for Jagdgeschwader 2? Was Klaus a good letter writer, Hannah? Did he tell you about the partisans? What about the backup frequency for the Freya radar arrays protecting the Ruhr? The questions come like bullets. Answering one seems to legitimize the next. Sharing a small, harmless detail about her training opens the door to a more significant one about her operational duties. He has made her complicit in her own interrogation. He has convinced her that cooperation is not treason, but a form of moral cleansing, a way to distance herself from the true believers, the fanatics. "The men who ran the camps, Hannah," he says, his tone confiding, as if they are partners in a difficult task. "They will be held accountable. The generals who gave the orders, they will face justice. But you were a girl who was good at her job, a cog in the machine. You can help us end this war faster. You can help us ensure fewer boys on both sides have to die. Isn't that what you want?" He offers her a golden bridge, a path to a kind of redemption. He is giving her a new, more palatable reason to speak, not to betray her country, but to save lives. It is a powerful, seductive lie. She finds herself clinging to it, a drowning woman grasping at a piece of wreckage. The information starts to trickle out. A call sign, the name of a commanding officer she disliked, the standard procedure for authenticating a coded message. Each small betrayal is a relief, a release of pressure, followed by a wave of sickening self-loathing. He knows when he has broken her. He sees it in the vacant quality of her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands as she reaches for the coffee cup. He now holds up a map of Western Germany, dotted with the symbols for air bases, flak batteries, and command centers. His finger traces a line from the French border toward the Rhine. "My bombers will be flying this route tonight, Hannah. Tell me about the early warning radar coverage here. The Würzburg-Reich systems, are they still operational after our last raids? Tell me what you know." It is a direct, operational question, the final threshold. And in her mind, the image of the bombers is overlaid with the face of the women in the photograph, the skeletal figures from the camp. Miller's logic has taken root. Helping him feels less like treason and more like an act of penance. Her voice is a monotone, detached from her body, as she begins to speak. She details the locations, the vulnerabilities, the gaps in the coverage left by retreating units. The words come easily now, the secrets she was trained to die for spilling into the quiet room. When it is over, she feels hollowed out, a vessel emptied of everything that once defined her. She has given him what he wanted: frequencies, call signs, procedures, names. The intricate web of the German air defense system, the system she had faithfully served, is now laid bare on his desk. Captain Miller closes his notebook. His face is not triumphant, but weary, almost sad. He stands up. "Thank you, Hannah. You have been very helpful." He doesn't say what will happen to her now. He doesn't need to. Her value has been extracted. She will be moved from this chateau to a proper prison camp, no longer a high-value intelligence asset, but just another anonymous prisoner, 7G4829. A guard arrives to escort her back to the cellar. As she stands, her legs unsteady, she catches her reflection in the dark glass of the window. She sees a stranger staring back, a woman she does not recognize, her face etched with a profound and permanent loss. The terrifying questions were not just about what she knew, they were about who she was, and the truest, most devastating answer was the silence that now filled the space where her certainty used to be.